Hello, Sam. Hello, Martin. How are you guys? Thank you for your support and for joining us on this podcast. Let's start. Some countries, such as the US, want to rely less on China. Could you share with us some key considerations companies should have when embarking on a China Plus One strategy?
Sure. Thanks, Ari. I think every business and every sector has its own nuances, and all of them have differing levels of reliance on China, and all of their wants or their needs or their urgency to change this going forward is really going to be different. So this is resulting in our clients all moving at different speeds with different strategies, but most of them are looking to diversify manufacturing, explore alternative sources of supply, and are looking at ways or different ways to rework their supply chains and operating models accordingly. And the goal of all of them is really to become more resilient and efficient. What we're seeing at the moment is with the US and the China trade policies, these are really driving our clients to, at the very least, de-risk, and at the extreme, decouple their supply chains from China to become more resilient. A lot of companies that are planning to reorganize their supply chain are also having to understand and incorporate the impact of BEPS pillars 1 and 2 into their planning, particularly those ones with a low tax or an incentivized hub structure. We're seeing a lot more companies looking to nearshore or onshore back to the US as a result. So a lot of the clients that we're seeing are needing to consider their global end-to-end supply chain when considering a move to Mexico. They also need to consider the tax and trade implications on the China side, on the Mexico side, but also to their other global supply chain locations, because this is really going to impact their global operating model when they make a decision to nearshore. Locations within Mexico, as well as incentives, are also going to be key considerations, something I think Martin is going to talk a little bit more about later.
Thank you, Sam. And maybe also a follow-up question now. Let's discuss nearshoring and onshoring. How they relate to operational model effectiveness that you just mentioned. Can you explain your role in this, please?
Sure. So the operating model effectiveness, or OME as we call it, the team that I work for, we help clients align their tax, their trade strategy with their supply chain, commercial and operational strategies. So nearshoring to Mexico or onshoring to the US is an option that we're seeing our clients exploring and doing more so nowadays than ever before. So we help our clients explore any challenges or changes in their supply chain and manufacturing footprints. And we help them understand the different operating model options involved when moving to Mexico or back onshore to the US. So we also help them understand and model out the interdependencies between all the tax and non-tax elements of making such changes, as well as helping them transition to and implement these new operating models.
Thank you so much. Now is your turn, Martin. What is a location analysis from your point of view? Can you also explain your role in this and why it's so close to nearshoring or onshoring strategies?
So my job, in essence, is to help companies find the right site for their next factory or R&D center or office. And EY serves as a one-stop shop. So we look at all the topics, including labor, real estate, utilities, political risk, and also tax and incentives. And all these factors are very critical to companies in terms of availability, cost, and timeline. And sometimes the right answer is offered by an onshore location, and sometimes it is nearshore.
Excellent, Martin. In my opinion, that pandemic had a lot of impact in business. How COVID has changed the way companies want a site selection to be conducted? And also, if you allow me, how does that impact their nearshoring decisions? It's very important.
I think, among the many things that changed with COVID, the pandemic really disrupted supply chains on the one side, but it also created a high consumer demand for a lot of goods. And so as a result, companies want to make sure that they have facilities in multiple spots around the world so that if one location shuts down, they can still meet the demand of customers at a reasonable time. And the easiest answer for that is, of course, producing domestically here in the United States, but that may not always be practical, right? Most locations in both Mexico and to a certain extent in Canada offer still a very interesting labor cost arbitrage. But for many companies, it has also become a question of the sheer availability of labor and time zone proximity. After many years of chasing kind of the low cost jurisdictions overseas, many of our clients are now setting up nearshore software and technology development centers in Mexico and elsewhere in Latin America, because they see their US and nearshore workforce can cooperate together in real time and not be just limited to a few hours in the morning and in the evening when the workday and different continents overlap.
How about you, Sam? Any comments? Do you see, if we see it positive, how about the nearshoring benefits? Could you also mention the benefits of from the operational effectiveness model perspective?
Sure. I mean, we're seeing many companies exploring establishing manufacturing in Mexico for the first time, or also expanding their manufacturing footprint in Mexico. So clearly having, as Martin said, manufacturing in Mexico is going to shorten the company's supply chains for delivery of goods to the end market in the US. And this will obviously likely improve companies' lead time, the logistics costs, and then probably the overall supply chain resilience for flows of finished goods into the US. But what are the implications of this from a raw material sourcing perspective, from a production and labor cost perspective, and also from an overall global supply chain and operating model perspective? Also, the tax efficiency of transitioning to a nearshoring model and of the nearshoring model going forward is also important to understand. So understanding both the tax and trade implications of any exit from China or any partial exit from China, and then moving to nearshoring in Mexico is key. So understanding how these tax and trade implications are linked to any different future potential operating model is also key.
So what are the key factors that companies are looking at a site selection, Martin? Do you have any comment?
Labor is probably the most important one and the most critical one nowadays. I mean, unemployment is still at record low levels. Wages have been on the rise, and people have many options where to work, so they don't necessarily want to commute as much anymore, or they prefer to work remotely. And when they consider a job, they really want to make sure that it's something that is aligned with their interests and growth patterns. So labor is really the key aspect. But somewhat surprisingly, real estate has also become an issue across the Americas really nowadays. There's obviously plenty of land that's not populated, but there's not enough shovel-ready land, as we say, land that's ready for construction with the required infrastructure. And with that, so having access to power, gas, and water, sometimes in very large quantities, it's not always easy for companies when they are on the search for land. Lately, tax has also been playing an outsized role in site selection decision. I think that the US has passed several large-scale incentives programs recently. The two best known are the CHIPS Act and the IRA, which provide incentives for the manufacturing and research and development of semiconductors and sustainability technologies. And companies want to utilize these to scale up their operations, but it's a complex process that they need help with, and it impacts not only their production, but really the entirety of their supply chain. More importantly, even, other support from the federal, state, and local level are critical to help, get the sites upgraded in time to meet the needs in terms of utilities and other aspects, but also really to train people. As we said, it's not only the availability of people, but also the right skills that need to be available. And Sam can.
No, sorry, continue. Sorry.
And Sam, has spoken already about some of the other aspects that are related to tax, be it BEPS 2.0 or could be transfer pricing or exit taxes or customs duties, which really have to be considered more than ever before. And then finally, I would say geopolitical risk and security overall are really at the forefront of a lot of conversations because they have enormous impact on companies' ability to produce and deliver products timely.
Sam, what are you seeing with our clients at a moment when it comes to nearshoring? What is the most important?
Yeah, I think one fundamental thing to note here is that with each company we're helping with these nearshoring or onshoring moves, very few of these projects are driven by the tax function or driven by tax aspects, but all of them are going to have a huge tax and trade and customs duties impact. So we're helping our clients a lot at the moment, supporting their tax function to get more involved in the discussions with their supply chain strategy teams, CFOs and boards. We're helping them ask the right questions of their stakeholders. We're helping them understand the tax and trade impacts of any partial exit or full exit from China and what that means for their global supply chains and operating models. So for greenfield investments into Mexico, we're helping clients explore new operating models that are being considered, like Martin says, by doing location assessments. We're also doing tax and financial modeling. And all of this is really to better prepare and support our tax and CFO stakeholders, discuss the trade and tax implications with their operational colleagues to be more informed when they're making the key change decisions. So once clients have decided on setting up manufacturing in Mexico and also their future state strategies or models and locations, we can then help them transition their operating models and supply chains. Again, not just from a tax perspective, but by understanding the interdependencies between all the elements and as well as integrating the tax strategy into those operational decisions. Planning and multifunction stakeholder engagement on the client side is really key. There are also many tax considerations if clients are exiting and partially exiting from China, including, as Martin mentioned, exit taxation. We could have an impact on IP ownership or usage. There would be transfer pricing, and there could also be potential clawback of any incentives on any exit. So it's all of these things that the client should be considering when planning and modeling out moving manufacturing from China. So the message here is really to make sure that the client tax functions are involved with these discussions. And again, we can help and support them. And the earlier that we're involved, the better we can help.
Very informative, Sam. Thank you. I have a last question. I think it's a complicated question. Martin just mentioned the CHIPS Act and the ERA Act. And what do you think? These laws present opportunities for U.S. companies to nearshore. What is your personal opinion, Martin, Sam?
So, it's interesting. The CHIPS and CHIPS Act is actually an acronym which stands for Creating Helpful Incentives to Produce Semiconductors. And not many people know that, but the program provides various types of benefits, including grants, loans, and tax credits for companies that, either produce or conduct research for semiconductors or produce the equipment to produce semiconductors in the US. The focus is obviously to onshoring all parts of the supply chain here domestically in the US, but many of the customers or users of these semiconductors who put them in devices, in particular the electronics industries, the manufacturers of various appliances, entertainment goods, etc. They are nearshoring their production to Mexico to benefit from synergies of the industry that has been there for many years, but also logistics and labor, right? And as it relates to the IRA, it focuses on transforming the U.S. economy into a greener, more sustainable one. It covers really a broad set of industries, which range from green fuels to the production of sustainable transportation vehicles, but also provides credit and other benefits to the end users, which is individual drivers and fleet operators. These incentives are available for companies and individuals in the U.S. only. However, to be eligible for certain of the credits, the law requires for a large portion of the components or the materials used for the production to originate either in the US or countries with which the US has a free trade agreement. And Mexico is one of those countries. So we are seeing a number of car makers and their suppliers, as well as the same thing for the renewable energy industry, including solar, locate new sites in Mexico, which then creates new jobs and opportunities for Mexican companies to participate in the industrial boom driven by the IRA.
Excellent, excellent. I want to thank you, both of you, but before we finish, I would like to have your final thoughts. Nearshoring is a trend, is a industrial organization. We will see more companies trying to do nearshoring, onshoring. What is your main thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've heard about it in the press for a long time now, and but activity maybe wasn't as high as it is now. I think this is really happening. I think companies should review their overall global supply chain. They should review their China strategy. How reliant are they? They should listen to their stakeholders. They should start understanding what alternative models are available. They should make sure that the tax function is communicating with the supply chain and the CFO functions. Yeah, Martin?
I think a lot of companies have focused really on the north of Mexico, but as the places there are becoming more crowded with some of the large-scale investments that are being announced, it's an opportunity really for companies to explore locations that are beyond kind of those obvious locations that are more in the south. I know the government is investing heavily in incentives really in the southern part, south of Mexico City, but also in other locations. And so this is the time to maybe push the frontiers a little bit and open or consider opening facilities in locations that may not have been tier 1 in the past years. To again reap the benefits from cost, but also help cultivate the local ecosystem and participate in kind of the uplift for Mexico.
Excellent. I really like your vision. I really like this conversation. Thank you so much. If you want to add something, please feel free.
If you are considering nearshoring, just give us a call and we'll be happy to assist.
Sam?
Yep, I echo what Martin says. I think it's very important to get advice on these things, and obviously we're here to support.
Thank you so much for our clients and friends that are listening to us. My name is Ari Ben Saks. Thank you, and see you next time in our Nearshoring 101 series. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.